So just what does a typical game of Battletech look like? That's what we're going to explore in this vlog, making my way through some mailbag, answering some comments, pushing the Tactica out, building that checklist, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Now, I have to say, if I look at my Battletech timeline, for the longest time, I played mech versus mechs. Big games, small games. I mean, Battletech, mechs, that's the focus. You know, Knights of the Future, Knights of the Realm, this massive war machine fighting with each other. And that certainly is the cornerstone of the Battletech universe. But there is much more outside that and beyond that. And what we see on the tabletop level, so we're going to go above the tabletop level, and then we're going to go to deep space. On the tabletop level, technology exists for battle mechs, but also combined arms, conventional weapons. We have infantry, tanks, air support, all these other methods to play Battletech. And I want to encourage you, of course, start with the mechs, because mechs are always going to be a part of your force, but look to branch out. So for the longest time, it was mech versus mechs. And then if you've been into other miniature war games, you know how this goes. And if you're new to Battletech, I promise you this is how it's going to go. You just dip your toes. You say, well, just what if I added a couple of tanks and some infantry? What's the big deal? And then next thing you know, you wake up in a haze like months later and you've got like half a dozen tanks and tons of new mechs and stuff like you don't even know what it is. So with that, over time, I very quickly jumped into combined arms. And I fell in love with infantry. I fell in love with tanks. And I love playing tanks alongside mechs because I love mechs. And in other war games, I played Imperial Guard for a long time. In Chain of Command Historicals, the only reason I play late war Germans is because I want to play those Tiger tanks. I want to play those massive tanks. I mean, I regularly play Ogre because I get to play either a big tank or lots of small little tanks from that perspective. So jumping in, my games quickly evolved where there was always an aspect of combined arms. There were always mechs with vehicles, with infantry. Now, how big, how small, it changes. I would say that most of my games of Battletech are combined arms, about half mechs, maybe 75% mechs, and then the rest infantry and vehicles. Anywhere from 5 to 8K battle value. Inner Sphere, pre-clan, no invasion. 5K clan is like, I get 3 mechs. Clans, you got to like jack it up to really get some stuff on the table. So we played combined arms for a long time. Then I jumped into air support, playing with air level and air units. And what I found here was, while I certainly enjoyed it, and my collection, that's the smallest component, I have about 6 or 7, not counting warriors and VTOLs and other things like that, Karnovs. I mean, dedicated conventional or aerospace fighters probably make 5, 6, 8 or so that I enjoy and that I play. But what I found was layering on those rules really started to slow the game down more than I normally like. And again, this is the great thing about Battletech. You can play as simple, as advanced, or as complex as you want. So there are times where I will add in some air units if it's part of a campaign or if it's a bigger wargaming table that we're playing on. But for the most part, I tend to leave those aside. Or when I'm playing with a friend or an opponent, like if I was playing with you and you're like, Fritz, I got some new toys. I want to try out the air tech. Or if you regularly played games that involved air support, I've got something that I can bring in. I've got a lot of partisan tanks too. We can bring those in also. And they're not just effective against air support. They're also really great against vehicles to kind of chew through those motive hits. But that's up in the Battletech playlist under the partisan tanks for that Tactica. Maybe we'll circle around. I'll make a note here and we can revisit that. So most of my games are combined arms. Now let's talk artillery, because if you've been following my channel, you know I love big guns. I mean, I'm mounting autocannon 20s on everything. I'm playing the Irby 20. I need those big guns. I need those PPCs. I need those multiple LRM 20 packs. I mean, that's why I love long-range missile carriers, because you can literally put out real-time hundreds and hundreds of missiles. In playing artillery, I have thumpers, I've got long toms, and I've got some proxy pieces that could kind of represent different configurations. Artillery I bring in from time to time, simply because not so much it slows down the game, but I find outside of very, very dedicated attacker versus defender or a city fight, city tech type scenario, the use is a little bit more challenging. You have to be really, really finesse. You have to really, really be on top of it. And often, loving big guns and loving lots of tanks, I'd rather just take the battle value and pump it right into some more LRM carriers or demolishers. But again, if the game warrants it, I can, as a mech commander, I can certainly pull that in. I would say, in terms of sidebarring for a moment, city fight, city tech versus hexland and open terrain and hills, kind of 50-50. I try to mix it up, whether it's a wargaming table or do a blind draw with the hex maps. There are times where we're feeling it. I'm feeling it. We want to do that city fight. We want to do that city tech, and we'll play 3 or 4 or 5 games back to back. So there are times we will dip in, but I tend to play a little bit of everything in the moment. And again, I defer to my friends, or if we were playing my opponent, what do you feel? I mean, it's good. We'll make it happen. Kind of the stuff that exists outside. Now, twice, because I looked through some of my old Battletech notes. Twice, we played Aerotech, kind of dropship combat, space combat. I vaguely remember the rules. I didn't have any miniatures. My friend had all the miniatures. That's easily been, I want to say, like 10, 12 years, something crazy. But in theory, Battletech, you could jump in multi-layer. You start in space, you fight it out there, you fight it in the air, you land on the ground. I mean, you can have those multiple layers. And then if you really want to, you can layer over RPG aspects and develop from that. So a couple of times I played that, but I don't think I want to get that much into the narrative outside of the actual mechs. And I think if I had to do a hot drop planetfall, my opponent would kind of figure out what my favorite lances are and blow them up before they even make planetfall, and I'd be super sad face on that. Jumping into the last final oddities, I've never played with any naval units. I know they're there. Weird stuff like mines and other just fortifications, special fortifications. We've played around from time to time, but it was more very, very, very mission specific, almost like the Chaos campaign, where if you move into one area and you're attacker versus defender and you're on the momentum as an attacker, the defender gets some extra fortifications, gets some mines, gets some laser fences, gets something. We've played with it, but I wouldn't say that I would regularly take proxy or modify that stuff from that perspective. So that's what an average game of Battletech looks for me. Turning it over to you guys in the comments. Your meta is my meta. Not all of our metas are the same. If I said Battletech Friday night, what are you traditionally playing? What are you bringing? And kind of what does that game look like?